Let's talk about the Aravalli Hills. You're looking at one of the oldest geological formations on the entire planet. For billions of years, they've been a constant, unchanging feature of the Indian landscape. But right now, these ancient mountains are at the very center of a storm of protest. And the wildest part? It all comes down to just a few words in a legal document.
So, what's going on here? All across northern India, people are actually taking to the streets. You have to ask, why is this ancient, super stable feature of the landscape suddenly become a flashpoint for such intense and widespread protest?
Well, the answer really boils down to this: a brand new legal definition. Just a handful of words on paper have completely upended the rules for this ancient mountain range, and that single change is the catalyst for everything we're about to dive into. Okay, so let's start with the people on the ground. This is a conflict that pits local communities and activists directly against a new federal rule. A rule that really redefines the very nature of these hills. And make no mistake, this is far from a fringe movement. We're seeing peaceful protests pop up in major cities like Gurugram and Udaipur. What's really striking is just how diverse this coalition is. You've got residents, farmers, environmentalists, lawyers, and even major political parties all united in their opposition. That kind of widespread support really tells you just how deeply this new rule has hit a nerve.
So what is this rule that's causing all this turmoil? Let's get specific and look at the new definition, which was proposed by the federal government and has now been accepted by India's Supreme Court. This is the definition that has changed everything. It all comes down to this: the 100-meter rule. From now on, for a piece of land to be legally considered an Aravalli hill, it has to be at least 100 meters tall. And if two or more of those hills are within 500 meters of each other, boom, they form an official range. It's a simple, objective number, but one with absolutely massive consequences.
And this really brings us to the core of the conflict. You see, from an ecological perspective, the Aravallis are a living system, defined by what they do. But this new legal view, it defines them simply by an arbitrary height. This is the fundamental clash of perspectives that's driving this entire debate. So, why are so many people against what seems like a pretty simple height-based rule? Well, environmentalists are sounding the alarm, warning that this new definition poses severe ecological risks that could have some really long-lasting consequences.
This quote from Neelam Ahluwalia, who's with a group called People for Aravallis, really gets to the heart of the fear. The problem is, countless lower, scrub-covered hills, the ones under 100 meters, are now legally unprotected. These aren't just bumps on the ground, they are vital parts of the ecosystem. They prevent desertification and replenish the water table for millions of people. And environmental activist Vikrant Tangad argues that this whole height-based definition goes against international norms. He points out that mountain systems are usually defined by the role they play, their ecological and climatic function, not by some arbitrary measurement. From his point of view, any landform that's part of the geological system should be protected, no matter how tall it is. Now, the protesters aren't just opposing the new rule, they actually have an alternative. They're demanding a more holistic, science-based definition that considers things like ecology, wildlife corridors, and climate resilience. Their goal is to create a definition that protects the entire ecosystem from potentially damaging mining and construction.
Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at the government's perspective. Why did they propose this rule in the first place? Their stated goal isn't to weaken protections, but to create uniformity and, in their view, actually strengthen regulation across the 4 states the Aravallis span.
So the government has laid out its rationale pretty clearly, as a direct response to public concerns. They argue that far from diluting protections, having a single, objective definition will allow for stronger, more consistent regulation across all the states. They're also reassuring the public that this new rule is designed to cover the entire hill system, not just the highest peaks. And the Federal Environment Ministry is pushing back, and pushing back hard, against the fear of widespread mining. They've stated unequivocally that it's just wrong to assume this new definition automatically opens up every smaller hill to commercial exploitation.
To counter these fears of environmental damage, the government has put a very specific number on the potential impact. The Environment Minister has said that a maximum of only 2% of the entire range could potentially be open to mining, and even that would require a whole bunch of detailed studies and approvals.
So, with these two competing views on the table, let's just zoom out for a second to understand what's truly at stake here. Because this isn't just a regional issue. The fate of the Aravallis has massive national significance.
This is a really stark warning from a political leader in Rajasthan. He makes that abstract threat of desertification feel incredibly real by claiming that this mountain range is basically the only thing standing between India's capital and a desert landscape. And he's not the only one. Another major political figure has framed this in even more dire terms, saying that the very survival of Delhi is at stake. These warnings really underscore just how critical the Aravallis are for the climate, the water, and the future of the nation's capital.
So where does all this leave us? Well, for now, we're at a stalemate. The new definition is the law of the land, but the opposition is not backing down. Protesting groups have vowed to continue their demonstrations and are already exploring new legal challenges. This struggle for the Aravalli Hills is far, far from over.
And so, this entire conflict really leaves us with a fundamental question. When an ecosystem is a lifeline for millions of people, how should we define it? By its physical form or by the vital function it performs for all of us?
I'm diving into the future.
I'm turning digital dreams into reality.
From my intense code sessions to exploring new frontiers,